Greetings to you all. This is Teacher Dr. Mgomba Arnold. Today we are going to go ahead and look at the six kingdom classification. That is to say, we are going to go ahead and look at kingdom plantae, kingdom Animalia, kingdom fungi, kingdom protoctista, and kingdom bacteria. In the 5-kingdom system, we usually look at kingdom bacteria as one, but the newest classification considered 6-kingdom classification, where we separate the bacteria into the Eubacteria and the Archaebacteria. We are going to go ahead and look at, that is what we are going to look at, the 6-kingdom classification of living organisms. So the goal is to classify living organisms or living things into 6 kingdoms. Why do we classify organisms? We usually ask ourselves a question, why do we classify organisms? There are a number of reasons as to why scientists try to classify organisms. They try to classify organisms the way you could also go in the market and you'll find that different items have been classified or organized in different shelves to enable you to see them easily, so that you can go ahead and find them and bind them with ease without spending a lot of time running around looking for something. So even the same applies to scientists. They try to classify living things simply because they want to organize all the discovered organisms so that you can easily learn about them. Organize them so that you can make learning about them very easy. And also to give organisms standard names. So that's one of the other reasons as to why we usually do classification, so that we can give these organisms their standard names, which will cut across in all countries. Otherwise, if every country would generate its own name, like for instance here in Uganda, you will find like about 50 different names of the same organism. So that will create language barrier among scientists. So because of that, scientists came up with a system that we are going to look at that tries to classify organisms. After classifying them, they give them names, 2 code names. And that was suggested by a man, a Swedish naturalist known as Carl Linnaeus. This Swedish man, after he discovered or he proposed a system known as binomial nomenclature, a system whereby we base on similarities between organisms, that is to say plants and animals, and then we give them names, 2-word names. So today we use a 7-level system of organization. We know about that. The one we usually give as King's Place chess on fine glass stools. So the highest being the kingdom, order being next, phylum being next, then order, class, kingdom being first, phylum next, class being next. After class, within the class you'll find very many different orders, and then within one order you'll find very many families, and within families you'll find very many genera. Within one genera you'll find very many species. So the 6-kingdom system, we are going to look at them. All organisms are classified into one of the 6 kingdoms. We have the Eubacteria, that contains bacteria that lives in harsh environmental conditions. We have the Archaebacteria, where we see bacteria that is living in harsh environmental conditions, like the thermophilic bacteria that lives in the hot springs. Otherwise, everyone would used to think that all bacteria could be destroyed by high temperatures. That is not the case with the Archaebacteria. It is only the true bacteria or the Eubacteria which live in the normal conditions, which can be destroyed by overheating. So the Archaebacteria, for it lives in very harsh environmental conditions, like in the hot springs, very cold conditions, like in the Antarctica, you'll find it there. That is the Archaebacteria. Then we have the protoctistans. We have the kingdom fungi, which contains mushrooms and molds, and then kingdom plantae. Then we have kingdom Animalia. So those are the 6 kingdoms that we usually look at. So let us go into the details of each of them. We have said kingdom Eubacteria or kingdom Archaebacteria was previously in the first 5 kingdom system was being grouped all together as bacteria. But the most current grouping puts Archaebacteria and Eubacteria in different kingdoms because of their characteristics. So when we are grouping organisms, we usually base on a number of items. One, we base on 4 items. The first item is the cell type. Is this organism made up of a prokaryotic cell, or it is made up of eukaryotic cell? Prokaryotic, I mean a cell type whereby it has a nuclear envelope, or it has a nucleus. That is eukaryotic. Then prokaryotic, meaning that the cell does not have a nucleus. Like the bacteria, their cells do not have a nucleus. The human cell has a nucleus. The number of cells, is it multicellular or unicellular? The feeding type, does it make its own food or it feeds on ready-made food? The type of reproduction, does it reproduce sexually or asexually? So that is what we usually base on to categorize the different organisms in their different groups. So the cell types I've told you. You can see here the one which does not have a nucleus. That is a bacteria. Its DNA is suspended within the cytoplasm. You can see the eukaryote. For it, it has a nucleus into which its DNA is placed. So the cell number, is the organism made up of only one cell or it is made up of very many cells? The one which is made up of a single cell, it is unicellular. The one that is made up of very many cells is multicellular. Multicellular organisms are made up of very many cells. Unicellular are made up of only one cell. Okay, so unicellular, like this one here, the yeast cell, is made up only one cell. An example that we can give for multicellular organism are the elephants. You can see the elephant, it is multicellular. Why? Because it is made up of very many cells. Okay, so the feeding type, how does the organism get their energy of food? That is the question. There are some which produce their own food, like the autotrophs. They produce their own food. They make their own food, like the plants. Then we have those ones which consume made food already. Those are heterotrophs. They must eat other organisms for them to survive. So the consumers or the heterotrophs, they must eat other organisms for them to survive. Like the lion. Reproduction. How do the organisms produce offsprings? Asexually, that is to say one parent is involved. Only one parent. They don't need male and female, no. Only one parent is involved. Like the binary fission, fragmentation, and budding. Take an example, we have some organisms like some of the plants and some of the bacteria. In sexual reproduction, we need 2 parents, both male and female parents, like in the lions. So we can go ahead, so you will go ahead and remember all those items. So now we are going to go ahead and look at class by class, okay? So in each of these points that we are going to go through, we should remember that we shall be filling in the type of cell. Is it prokaryotic or eukaryotic? So then the number of cells, unicellular or multicellular. Then the type of feeding, is it producer or consumer? The reproduction, is it sexual or asexual reproduction? Okay, so let's begin the 6 kingdoms. So the Archaebacteria, I told you the Archaebacteria is the bacteria that lives in harsh environmental conditions. Then the Eubacteria exist in the normal conditions. Then we have protoctista, we have fungi, we have kingdom plantae, and we have kingdom Animalia. So those are the 6 kingdoms that we look at. So the first 2 kingdoms, they were traditionally known as prokaryotes. Originally, they are the ones they used to call kingdom Monella. So the first two are the ones which we broadly group under prokaryotes. The last four are the ones we usually broadly group under eukaryotes. Eukaryotes, just to remind you, they are the ones which we have, the ones which are usually the ones which have a nucleus. Prokaryotes lack a nucleus. Okay, so we have seen that. So when you look at the first two kingdoms, involve only bacteria, and the scientists at first had grouped the bacteria into only one kingdom, which they called the Monella, kingdom Monella, originally. So currently it has been separated into two, the Archaebacteria and the Eubacteria. Now when you look at both groups, they usually form only bacteria, and all those bacteria are unicellular and prokaryotic. So still the same kind. What you need to remember is the characteristics of the bacteria. One, they are unicellular. Two, they are prokaryotic. That is that is all that you need to remember. So the archaebacteria, they get their energy from sunlight and they produce their own food. Some of them are decomposers. They feed on decomposing material. They reproduce asexually by binary fusion, and they reproduce within a very short period of time. They have different chemical composition from the other bacteria, and as I told you, they can be found in harsh environmental conditions. Like now, this is a hot spring. They are found there. So now we can go ahead and look at the true bacteria. These are the commonest, the ones that cause disease to man. So the Eubacteria is known to be that's what they usually call bacteria, because they live in normal conditions, like in human body and in pond water. So you will look at them, the cell type is prokaryotic, they are unicellular, some of them are producers, like this one here. They make their own food, while others are heterotrophic. That means they feed on already made food. They reproduce by means of asexual production, binary fusion. Okay, how they locomote? Some of them have flagellum, others do not have flagellum, so they use cilia. Some of the importances of bacteria, uses of bacteria. Bacteria can be used for making yogurt in the food processing industry, for making yogurt, cheese, and sometimes bacteria are used for cleansing solutions, or they're used for solutions that's used for cleaning the environment. Some bacteria are used as medicine. Some are very important when it comes to act as decomposers in the nitrogen cycle to recycle nutrients. 99%, by the way, of the bacteria are useful, and it is only 1% that cause disease, like the tuberculous that causes tuberculosis, and the one that causes diphtheria. So the second kingdom, the third kingdom we are looking at is kingdom protoctista. Kingdom protoctista, the cell type, they are eukaryotic. They exist as unicellular organisms or multicellular organisms. They can either be consumers or decomposers or producers. They reproduce mainly asexually. Now when you look at protoctista, it is the most diverse group, and it is the one where what scientists have failed to classify, that's where they put them. So it has both plant-like and animal-like. It has plant-like, animal-like, and fungus-like organisms, the leftovers. Sometimes it is known as the toolbox or the workshop. They just drop there whatsoever they have failed to classify. That's what they put there. So that is what you usually talk about here. Then we have protoctista. They're usually found in ponds and lakes. Some of the protoctistans cause diseases to humans, like the amoeboid dysentery is caused by protoctistans. You've heard about protoctistans causing sleeping sickness. That sleeping sickness is caused by protoctista, though it is spread by the tsetse-fly. The malaria that we all know about is caused by by a protoctista known as Plasmodium. How do they move? These protoctistans, they move by three different types. Some of them move by use of pseudopodia or the false legs. Others use cilia or flagellum. Others just contract and move around. Now we can go ahead and look at the kingdom fungi. In kingdom fungi, it includes some of the most important organisms. These ones, for them, when you look at them, yes, they're eukaryotic, they are multicellular, they feed on decomposing material, so they are decomposers. They are very important in recycling of nutrients in the ecosystem, despite other functions they do. So they can either be unicellular, like in the yeast, or multicellular, like the mushrooms. They are decomposers and they reproduce both sexually and asexually. You can all identify them with me. The fungi are very important, can be very harmful, and sometimes they can be very delicious. They can be harmful in a way that, like, some of them can be like the poisonous mushrooms. They can be so delicious in a way that some of you have eaten mushrooms, like the oyster mushrooms. Very delicious. Some of them have antimicrobial abilities, like the penicillium. Penicillium is very important for producing an antibiotic known as penicillin. It was discovered during the First World War, where they used to put it on patients who had infections of wounds, soldiers who have wounds which used to be infected. So they would put penicillin on them, and it would cure the infection. And that is when they were discovered. Previously, people used to die of infections. Arthritis food is, you've all seen arthritis food. Those people they develop wounds in between their toes. In the local language, they are the ones they usually call ogeregere. They are very dangerous. They are caused by fungus. You've heard about ringworms. Some people develop ringworms. All those are diseases caused by fungus. How the fungus move? Most of the times they are stationary. They don't move. And they have root-like structures that enable them to attach to the substratum onto which they are growing. Kingdom plantae. When you look at kingdom plantae, the cell type, they're usually eukaryotic, meaning that they have the nucleus. They're usually multicellular, and they make their own food. They reproduce by means of both sexual reproduction and asexual reproduction. We have the simplest plants. We have the mosses, under division Bryophyta. You can see them there, the mosses. You know these organisms that form blankets, green blanket that is found in damp, moist places. You have gone to those damp, moist places, like around the tap, in the backyard. So you'll find those blankets of green, hairy structures known as mosses. They belong to a group division known as Bryophyta. You can see them there. Then we have the liverworts and hornworts. They are still in Bryophyta. The ferns, which we placed in a group known as Pteridophyta. You must have seen these ones. They also live in damp, moist places. Those ferns, that you must have seen this image somewhere. Then we have the other group known as the gymnosperms. They are older vascular plants. They are cone-bearing plants, like the pines. Like the pines. Okay. The cone-bearing plants. You can see those pines. You can see them. So they bear their seeds, which are naked. They bear naked seeds, and they organize them in structures known as cones. They have vascular bundles. They have vascular system. Then the next group are known as the flowering plants, or the angiosperms. What is unique about them is they produce flowers. You can see this beautiful flower. They are able to produce flowers, and two, they produce seeds. Their seeds are enclosed within a fruit, like this mango fruit. You can see this mango fruit, a seed. You can see the fruit of a legume here, the beans, and so on and so forth. So they are flowering plants. Why they are unique? Their seeds are enclosed within a fruit. They are not like the gymnosperms. Kingdom Animalia. In Kingdom Animalia, they are eukaryotic, their cell type. They are multicellular. That means they are made up of more than one cell. They are consumers because they cannot make their own food. They eat other organisms. Their reproduction is basically sexual reproduction. Okay, so we have very many different groups under animal kingdom, Kingdom Animalia. We have the polyphera, or the sponges. We have the cnidarians, or the jellyfish. And the jellyfish is known as the stinger because they have special structures known as nematocytes, which are used for stinging. So those of you who have encountered a jellyfish, you can tell with me that when you touch it, it will sting you. So jellyfish, cnidarians, you can see them there. We have so they have nematocytes. You can see those are hook-like structures which they push out and then they inject poison into the prey. After paralyzing it, then they can swallow it and eat it. So they have stinging cells. We have mollusca. In phylum mollusca, we have the octopus, the squid, the oysters, the snails, and the slugs. All of them fall in phylum mollusca. Okay. Then we have phylum platyhelminthes. In phylum platyhelminthes, those are the flatworms. They are very important. They are flatworms, the tapeworms and the liver flukes. You have all heard about the tapeworms. They can be so dangerous. They can obstruct the digestive system of the human beings. For those of you who eat uncooked pork. And then these ones here are commonly known to infest the liver flukes. Then we have the annelids, or the ones which are commonly known as the segmented worms, or the roundworms. Then we have the leeches. You have heard about those roundworms. You have seen them. They usually live in soil, which has a lot of organic matter. Those are the worms. Segmented worms, the annelids. Earthworms. Then we have so those are earthworms. Then we have the leech. The leeches here. Some people have used leeches as treatment. They use them for sucking dangerous substances from the human body as a method of treatment. We have the Echinodermata. In echinoderms, we have the starfish, we have the sea urchins, and we have the sea cucumber. Then we have, those are the echinoderms. You can see them there. The arthropods, we have a number of different kinds of arthropods. We have shellfish, we have the insects, we have the arachnids, and the bugs, the bed bugs, the cockroaches. All of them fall here. All those ones are. Then we have a very broad group of chordates. So in our next video, we are going to go ahead and broadly look at the this very broad group known as chordata. That is what we shall have in our next group, in our next discussion. So in this video, we have been looking at broadly the different groups, the different kingdoms, the 6-kingdom system. That is the Kingdom Animalia, Kingdom Plantae, Kingdom Eubacteria, Kingdom Archaebacteria, Kingdom Fungi, Kingdom Protoctista. That's what we have been looking at. I remain teacher Dr. Mgomba Ronald. If you are new here, consider to subscribe, like, and share with your colleagues. That is the only way you can support so that we can continue making good videos for you.